Oh, good evening, listeners. It's Mickey Mouse here, and today, these gentlemen are going to do tunes in no particular order. And I sure hope one of you strapping young lads has included me in this top 5. So who wants to take it away?
I'll go first. I feel like I've done this before.
Feels like
Alright, so these cartoons have spanned my whole entire life, so some older ones, some newer ones. Mostly old ones. So I'm going to start with honorable mentions. And first honorable mention is Rocko's Modern Life. My favorite character there is Heifer. Thank you, Sean.
Welcome.
Rocko's Modern Life. Really cool show. Cool characters. Next one on the list is Real Monsters. Ickis with the hairy armpits.
It was Chrome.
Chrome with the hairy armpits. Ickis was, which one was Ickis?
He was the red one with the rabbit ears.
The red one with the rabbit ears. The long, skinny, black and white one with the big lips named Ickis.
I'm 40 years old. This was like a long time ago, right?
This is when I was a child. I can't remember this.
I just remember fucking hairy armpits. That's all I
Slightly
fucking
gay
remember.
teacher that had the high heels.
So yeah. So that was a pretty cool show. With the hairy armpits. Next one is Ren and Stimpy. Ren and Stimpy was pretty awesome. Next honorable mention, Tailspin on Disney. Pretty fabulous.
Fabuloso.
Pretty fabulous.
Fabuloso in Home Depot.
And the last honorable mention is Muppet Babies.
Muppet
Babies.
Dude, it was so stupid, but I like it.
I like it. Didn't they remake it? It just wasn't good.
Yes. Ralph was the bomb.
Rolf.
Whatever his fucking name is.
I was a Rolf fan too.
Rolf.
Adolf.
Anyway.
So now into the top 5 in no particular
In an order.
Oh, in
an order this
Whoa.
time. My first time, I think, ever.
Nice breaking character here.
Breaking character. Number 5, DuckTales.
Woo!
Race cars, lasers, aeroplanes. Here in
Mr. McScrooge with his vault of coins that he used to swim in. Man, I wish I was McScrooge. Pretty fucking amazing. Number 4 is something we talked off air, I think, about 90s X-Men. Gambit was my favorite. Gambit and I guess Sabretooth was actually pretty cool.
Sabretooth. Yeah, it was awesome.
You really need to go watch 97.
Yeah. Number 3.
Doug
was pretty cool. Patty Mayonnaise. I had a big crush on Patty when I was a little boy.
One of the best cartoon bands ever, the Beats. The Beats with Monroe Yoder and
Quail Man.
Killing tofu.
How cool was Quail Man?
for allowance So Mike, are you trying to tell us that you have a thing for like the athletic females?
No.
With the
No, I really didn't have a thing for Patty Mayonnaise.
The best dub on the internet with the Fetty Wap.
Yeah, but Patty was very athletic.
She was very athletic. So number 3 was Doug. All right, number 2, Futurama.
Dang.
I like
I
Futurama.
never thought you were a Futurama fan.
Yes, Futurama was awesome from the makers of The Simpsons.
Yes.
Yep. I really did enjoy Futurama. It was a really good show, and then it was. And then number 1, obviously y'all are my age group, but at that time, I am sure every single one of y'all at some time and place watched the 90s Ninja Turtles. And I had a bunch of little Ninja Turtles and collected them, had a case to put them all in, and
Exact.
My favorite character
There you
was Michelangelo because he had my name.
He was a party dude.
He was the party dude. So yes, I did like the Ninja Turtles. That's my number one.
That's your number one.
My number one, 90s Ninja Turtles. And I like the movies too. The 90s Ninja Turtle movies were freaking awesome.
Go Ninja, go Ninja, go.
Yeah.
Is that where you first became a Casey Jones fan, or was it the cartoon?
The cartoon. Yep.
As Russell wears his Casey Jones hat.
So that's it. Sean, what do you got?
I'll go number two because that's a great segue. I actually did not put that one on my list, but I watched Ninja Turtles to death. There was even, I think it was an Easter where my parents got me all Ninja Turtle figures, the van. It was like an entire, all of my gifts. My mom, well, from the Easter Bunny, lined up all the figures along the top of the couch. I got like probably, 25 Ninja Turtles for Easter that year.
And some kind of container to hold them all in, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, the van and stuff, you cram them all in the van and
Oh, the
stuff.
van.
And,
That big plastic bin full of toys in my garage.
But yeah, I was definitely a Ninja Turtles kid over like G.I. Joe or Transformers. That was Ninja Turtles is what I latched on to. And so I figured I was going to go second since Mike named a lot of them. But so I guess I'm just going to start from the bottom of what I wrote down. I guess they're in somewhat of an order. So he mentioned DuckTales. I watched a lot of DuckTales. I was sitting here singing the theme song a little bit. Played the video game a lot too. DuckTales on NES was like the counterpart to the cartoon. Played the shit out of that game. And then also,
He used that one year for Halloween.
Well,
oh,
That's his quill, man.
there you go.
He wears his underwear over his pants.
Yeah. Also, as a kid, my parents can vouch for this. Is that I watched the shit out of Muppet movies. Like I had recorded them on the VHS and watched those episodes over and over again. And it was like Todd mentioned it came full circle when they did a reboot of it, and I watched it with my child when she was younger. And it had a similar feel, but it was not. It was in the computer animation. They couldn't recapture the magic, the '80s cartoon. But kind of to round off my young childhood, another cartoon that I was obsessed with, I don't know why, was Heathcliff.
Oh, he was a Cadillac after the shit.
Heathcliff.
Dude.
Oh, yeah. I remember I have this vague memory of, like, I think it might have been, like, my dad's 40th birthday or something when I was, like, 5 years old or however old I was. And, all the adults are having a party in the front room. And, like, I go in with this tape and I stick it in the VCR and put whatever was on TV, I put in a Heathcliff episode. I remember all the adults, whoa, what the hell? Like, all losing their mind because I put a tape in over, like, some game they were watching or something. It may have been football or something. But it was like, and I was like, what did I do? I just want to watch TV.
Fun fact, one year for your Halloween party, me and Jessica discussed being Riff Raff and Cleo. Cadillac. I just couldn't figure out how to pull it off.
Now I'm singing the Heathcliff song. Yeah, it's in my head now. Anyway, so then it's funny. My list is kind of in order of like maturity, so to speak. Because then going forward to the Nickelodeon days, of course, Rocko's Modern Life was one. Doug, but then especially on my list was Ren and Stimpy. Ren and Stimpy was just like different. It was weirdly vulgar and gross, and It's funny, I was actually on the trip last week singing the log song for some reason.
It's log, it's log.
Like, I'm in the car, something triggered that, and I'm like, it's log, it's big, it's heavy, it's wood. And even Sarah's like, what the hell are you singing? And I was like, I grew up here in the 90s.
So almost hooked once we got back implants from Stimpy's butt.
But yeah, that show, it's funny that show had my parents into it, even though they were like, I don't know if this is appropriate, but they were like intrigued watching it too. Because the counterpart, not really, well, I'd say parents wise, that's on my list that my parents hated in contradiction was Beavis and Butthead. That, being our age at the time, it's like they were like, this is very inappropriate, and being in grammar school, it's like they acted like, we really don't want you watching this. It's kind of stupid and vulgar, but Beavis and Butthead probably shaped a lot of our childhoods. Anyway, moving on the lists, I kind of skipped over one more from the childhood. I could say Tiny Toons, I could say Animaniacs, but the one from like that group of cartoons that was my favorite was Pinky and the Brain.
Pinky in the brain.
I don't know why I watched the shit out of that show. I used to do Pinky's voice all the time, and all that kind of stuff, and around friends, and I don't know why I was obsessed with that show. I had a shirt with the brain on it, like a green picture of him on it, or whatever the hell.
Brain was a shit.
But yeah, I think I even had a doll or two or something like that. And then top 3, I'm just going to get these over with because they're probably going to be on a lot of people's lists. Got to be The Simpsons, since it was like, the first kind of like family cartoon like that, and seeing so many Simpsons episodes. And I remember in high school, me and Michael Scalise tried to like out trivia each other, and we'd come to school with like new trivia questions from different episodes of The Simpsons. It's like, what was the name of that character in that episode? And it's like, oh, that's so and so. And it's like, we had like even the books, like the episode guides, and it would like have a little bio on every episode of the show and shit. And yeah, so good old Simpsons. And then of course, number 2's got to be Family Guy. Seen way too much Family Guy, and my child's even into Family Guy, even though it might be slightly inappropriate for a 9-year-old. But she's.
Has she seen Deadpool 1 and 2 yet?
She has not. She has not. But yeah, she's. We watch.
Has she seen Revenge of the Nerds yet?
Half high.
We watched Willy Wonka, and then she is obsessed with Family Guy too. And she showed me the clip she found of them parroting Willy Wonka, and it's the Oompa Loompas dancing around Joe, and they're singing about his like, where is this so-called God and whatever, and it's like talking about him not having function of his legs. And she shows this to my mom at their house one time, and I'm like, I hope my mom doesn't get pissed. My mom actually thought it was funny. Like why is your 9-year-old daughter watching this? But yeah, good old Family Guy. It's like if it's on TV, she'll find it. She's like, look, Dad, Family Guy. I'm like, yes, I've got DVDs in the other room. You probably don't even realize.
My favorite one is where he has the little birds that nest in his beard.
Yeah.
And they shit all over the place.
There's just too many. And I wish Biff or Dylan especially, it's funny how they can point out the episodes and even know all the little side bits of them. I remember some of the side bits. I'm like, oh, that was the same episode. Peter did this and that. I was like, how do y'all tie all that together? But yeah, they were definitely diehards. And then of course, my number 1 has to be South Park. Since South Park came out the week we started 8th grade at Rummel, it was like August 13th of '97, and that's like starting high school, even though we're in 8th grade. This new show, and it. Like they even joked in the show, we warped our fragile little mind. It's like we've never been the same ever since South Park came out. And that's like the show of our generation. That we kind of grew with. The show matured like we did, and
Still going today.
got to go South Park.
I have 5 honorable mentions, and I really just kind of had to condense this because there's definitely some I'm leaving off. First honorable mention, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. I watched this as an adult again, and like this, essentially every episode is almost the same thing. They just have a bunch of cool characters in it. Who didn't want to be He-Man, and walking around as jacked up. They really did some really cool villains, really cool heroes too. I mean, Moss Man,
It's kind of
Triclops and Slapjaw. Second, I'll mention the Snorks.
Oh, dude.
Kind of like the Smurfs, but I feel like better. I mean, they just swam under the water with little dick things on their head. I was a Demi Finster fan. He kind of the bad boy of the
I
bunch.
could have mentioned the Smurfs, but not the Snort. I mean, I knew the Snorts, but yeah.
Third honorable mention, and no one's mentioned this one yet. We mentioned all the Disney afternoon cartoons. You said Tailspin, you said DuckTales. No one's mentioned Darkwing Duck yet. Megavolt is hands down one of my favorite cartoon villains.
That was another good game, too. The NES game for it.
And I felt like that was definitely the best of the bunch. Of the
I
Disney
just thought
afternoon.
one Rescue Rangers.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Chippendales. Chippendales?
Fourth honorable mention, Beavis and Butthead, Sean mentioned. I mean, obviously, very, very unique show, and it would include the music videos.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, the famous lines, I'm the great Cornholio and Butt Munch. And And of course, when they came out with the movie, I remember I saw the movie when it first came out at one of those old lakeside theaters that was on Veterans. The movie was great.
Like the theater between Vets and the Interstate.
Yep.
It was like where like Lee's Hamburgers is now or something like that. Somewhere.
I think it's where Just for Feed is, or
Petco.
Petco, yeah.
Damn, you're dating yourself on that one. It's been Petco for a while.
Where at?
Like Petco and Michael's.
Yeah, it used to be
right there
called
by the
Lakeside.
Vision.
It used to be called Lakeside Cinema.
Oh.
It was across.
Yeah,
it was
Yeah,
across
they
the
had
street.
movie theaters like where like Red Lobster was and all
Right,
that, but
right,
then
right.
they had this little tiny ass theater across the way.
Yeah,
Across
also,
Vets.
when I was in Pigeon Forge, they had a store that had like, you've seen all those little cool magnets they have. Well, they had one that was like a Butthead cereal box, and it was called Butt Munch, and I thought about getting it.
Oh, by the way, since you're speaking of Beavis and Butthead, if y'all haven't seen the recent Beavis and Butthead skit from Saturday Night Live, it's stupid as shit. It's like there's no point of it. But the thing is the actress, one of the cast members in the episode, didn't see the guys in the makeup. Like they dressed two of the guys like Beavis and Butthead, and she turns around and sees one of them and loses it in the middle of the
It's
skit.
Gosling, right? Ryan Gosling.
Yes, Ryan Gosling was Beavis, and then one of the other cast members was Butthead. But it's to see a cast member on Saturday Night Live break that hard. She was like literally like she couldn't continue the skit. She was laughing so hard at the dude in the Butthead makeup.
Last honorable mention, and this one I originally had my top 5 until I thought of the whole series of shows that I kicked it out. It's Dragon Ball Z. Again, we've talked about this before. Dragon Ball Z was one of those things that kind of helped me and Travis get through college. I know Patrick said load management was his thing.
No, I didn't.
That's right. Go review the tape.
Find me the episode I said that. I'll put it in if it is.
It was a little below the belt, pun intended.
But Dragon Ball Z,
It has to be a memory.
a big Piccolo guy. Dragon Ball Z, I think we first started watching when Goku and his crew were fighting Vegeta and Nappa, and then we just kind of continued from there. But it was
The Ginyu Force came around.
Dragon Ball Z. It's the only form of anime I've ever watched. And real anime nerds will tell me, "Oh, it's not real anime." But Dragon Ball Z was the shit.
And then after you explain that to me, I'll tell you what a vagina feels like.
Moving into my top 5. Number 5, this was already mentioned. It was mentioned by both of y'all.
That's what
Might have
picture
been.
that.
That's Doug.
Yes.
I mean, Doug was probably one of the first Nicktoon I think that kind of grabbed my attention. When Disney bought it out and took it over, it wasn't as good, but it was still good. Roger Klotz. I mean, I said Megabolt's one of my favorite cartoon villains. Roger Klotz is right up there. This shirt that I've been kind of eyeing on TeePublic, where it's a ringer tee, but I guess you can probably change that. And it says "What a Loser" on it, and it's got Roger Klotz's face on it.
Didn't you dress as not Roger, but one of the friends following
Travis did
Quailman. Will Quailman and Patty Mayonnaise one year.
4th, Rocco's Modern Life. That's my favorite Nicktoon. And, we talked about Ren and Stimpy kind of being a little bit vulgar and probably not necessarily for kids, but I think Rocco's Modern Life was kind of on that same vein. They just released the movie on Netflix a couple years ago, and it was awful. It wasn't anywhere remotely close to as good as the cartoon was. I was really disappointed in it. Bunch of good characters. Like I said, Heifer, Filbert, turn the page and wash your hands.
I was thinking that.
Awesome cartoon. We talked about this may have been off air, it may have been on air earlier when we were running the show, but the 3's Batman the Animated Series. If you haven't seen that, you should go back and watch it.
Stop what you're doing. Go
It's
watch
just
it.
really, really good. I'm a Mr. Freeze fan. That's my favorite DC character, and I really think the animated series just really kind of put him in that, I don't know, kind of like sinister light. Whereas, before, if you look back in the old days, he was kind of like a goofball looking.
Even when Arnold Schwarzenegger played him.
That was stupid.
Cool off.
And I think you kind of said like you would put Mark Hamill's Joker up there against Heath Ledger's. I think that the best portrayal of Mr. Freeze by far is the Batman the Animated Series. 2, Thundercats.
Thunder.
I know I had He-Man and the Masters of the Universe on here, and I feel like He-Man and the Masters of the Universe is kind of the poor man's Thundercats. I was a big fan of the mutants. Monkey is one of my favorite cartoon characters.
Monkey in the club.
And again, you mentioned the dub,
The overdubs or whatever.
what was the dog one that they did?
Fetty Wap.
Yeah, Fetty Wap. Yep.
There's a good one, a monkey from 50 Cent in the Club. Might have to go find that and post that on the Twitter page. Thundercats is my number 2. I actually have a really cool piece of artwork that I got from Comic-Con that just has the mutants on it. The artist actually did one with all the Thundercats on it, and then he did an opposite one with the mutants. And of course, the mutants are my favorite characters, so I got that one. And number 1 is no surprise if you kind of flip back to when we did the overall TV shows. Same with Sean's number 1. It's South Park. South Park. I mean, there's a reason why they've been around so long. It's just they've gotten better with time. I think they just take relevant shit and just throw it in the episode really quick. I'll never forget the election episode where Hillary and Trump ran. The election where Hillary and Trump were against each other, and they made the episode where Hillary won because everybody was kind of expecting her to beat Trump. And when they found out Trump won, they went in that night and changed it to where Garrison's character, who was Trump, ended up winning.
Yeah.
And of course, you go back to the Redskins episode where you saw the commercial and they had RG3 in it, and Kirk Cousins ends up beating out RG3. By the time the episode airs, it's Kirk Cousins and not RG3.
6 days to South Park.
So they just
take
take
episode in 6 days. Yeah.
They just take current stuff and just throw it in there, and I think when they added PC Principal in there, it just kind of elevated the show to make it that much better. But yeah, South Park is my number 1, and though I haven't seen any of the newer episodes because they're all aired on Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
When I first got Hulu, I watched it from the very, very beginning to the very end, and I was hoping to kind of continue on there, but then I guess Hulu kind of cut it, and Paramount picked it up. So.
Just the newer specials or whatever. They still, I think a new season actually did air on Comedy Central, but it was only 6 episodes or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do specials or 2-part things on Paramount Plus, and I haven't seen any of those.
You want to go, Russ?
Yeah, no, I'll go. I tried real hard to condense this, and it did not happen at all. So I'm going to quickly blow through my honorable mentions. So
your top 15 list.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk too much about this or these at all, but just real quick, Angry Beavers, Rugrats, Looney Tunes, Tiny Toons, South Park is at that level just because I just think there's a lot of stuff that's better than that.
Hey.
Invincible, which is a comic that has recently been turned into a cartoon, is very, very good, very graphic. Aqua Teen Hunger Force. All right, so starting my honorable mentions. First one I want to talk about is called Reboot. I don't know if y'all remember this. I think it was on Toonami, and it was about computer programs that was, I forget the main character's name, but they were going up against Megabyte, and there was all these games that would come down, which would be this not cylindrical, but this box, and if you got caught in it, you'd be sent into a game, and they were all trying to avoid it. It's actually a really good show. I always enjoyed it. This probably doesn't hold up as well today. The next one I want to talk about is called Vox Machina. It is on Amazon Prime, I believe.
Yeah.
And
I've heard
it's
that's
actually
good.
about Dungeons and Dragons. So, in my opinion, it's as close as you're going to get to seeing I'll call it a playthrough of Dungeons and Dragons in a cartoon form. It's just fun. If you have some D&D background, you kind of know what they're doing, what kind of spells they're casting, but it's absolutely hilarious. It's pretty graphic as well, or it can be. The cast in it's phenomenal. It's some good voice actors. The next one, Adventure Time. I have a thing for shows that kind of step up to the next level as far as it's a kid's show, but it's definitely got some more mature topics in it. And Adventure Time does a really good job of that. It's also got some really batshit insane, crazy.
Did it come on Adult Swim?
No, Adventure Time's a Nickelodeon show.
Is it? Okay.
I think it's targeted for preteen, teen-ish.
I think my kids have watched it at one point.
Yeah, I know what it is.
It's
With the Amazing
show.
World of Bubblegum and
It's and it
Gumball,
has
Amazing World of Gumball.
overarching story that from start to finish. There's a whole Lich saga. It's really good.
Speaking of South Park.
Three more for my honorable mentions. Arcane. So this is a Netflix show, and it is based off of the computer game League of Legends. I do not play this game. I know much about it, but this show was utterly insanely good. In short, it's like two sisters that something goes down and throw apart.
Taking a dick pic?
Just making sure he's a grower, not a show. And there's like a time jump in it, and it just kind of goes over everything. There's all the characters from League of Legends is in it, and it's just the animation's top notch. I'm highly anticipating the season 2 for that. Definitely recommend checking that one out. Dragon Ball Z was also mentioned, and I got to give that a quick shout out. I mean, that essentially started me getting into anime. I think that came on Toonami originally. Dragon Ball, I think, came on, then Dragon Ball Z.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've watched a lot of that. Still watch that today. The Crescent City Classic passed, around Easter. I literally dressed up as Goku with two of my buddies who also dressed up as Goku and Trunks.
Nice.
And ran the whole race. We plan on doing the Ginyu Force next year, and we need more people. So
Burnt her.
yeah, I called Jace, so we need some people to play the other roles. And then my last honorable mention is Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty I find to be in the same vein as one of my top 5. It's just very intelligent. It's very clever. It's definitely not a show for everybody, but it's good.
It's not going to make my list, but it is a very good cartoon. I haven't watched enough of it, but my son likes to kind of sneak and watch it when his mother's not home. It's very funny. It's bordering. It's bordering like South Park humor and Family Guy humor. And it's a really good cartoon. I one day I'll probably go back and watch more seasons.
I definitely recommend it because it's definitely you can take each episode at face value and just enjoy it. But it also has the overarching plot and it's fun to try and theorize and figure out what's going on.
Yep.
Okay, sorry for the long honorable mention list, but to get in my top 5 in order, at number 5 is Castlevania. It's a next Netflix show. It's based off of the Castlevania series. I think it started as a Nintendo game.
Yeah, more good games.
And they're phenomenal games. One of my favorite games of all time is called Castlevania Symphony of the Night. It's a PlayStation game with Alucard, which is Dracula backwards. They're real awesome at telling stories back then, and I say that very sarcastically. That show was so cool because not only is it really good, it tells a great story about the Belmont clan, which fight vampires, and it brings Dracula into it. But it's also very witty, it's very fun, and it's got a ton of call-outs to the game, just random bosses that are in the game or enemies, and it's just really fun to watch as a fan of that series. My number 4 is Avatar: The Last Airbender.
I heard that was good.
Fortunately, I did not watch that while it released. I watched it within the last 5 or 6 years or so, but that's another one that still holds up. It's targeted at kids, and it is phenomenal. Everything so far, I would recommend going to watch that. We talked about my number 3 a couple times already. A couple people have it on the list, which is the 90s Batman animated series. It's top notch. I'm not going to say anything else. We kind of beat that one to death. My number 2 also has been on people's list, Futurama. Futurama is one of my favorite cartoons of all time. I grew up watching it as it was releasing. When it got canceled, re-upped and canceled again, and then it ended perfectly, and then it got more seasons. And it's all over the place. But a fantastic show. My number 1, without a doubt, hands down, is BoJack Horseman. Will Arnett voices BoJack. It's I definitely like really dark humor, and it is nothing but dark humor. Phenomenal job with all of the voice actors. The story, the content in the show is just insane. It hits on real life topics and real drama issues, and sometimes it's hard to watch. One of my favorite episodes is an episode where he gives a eulogy for the entire 30-minute episode about one of his parents, and it's probably the closest I've ever heard anybody describe what it's to experience the death of a family member. And of course, there's a bunch of little quips, and at the very end, you find out that he's not even at the right funeral. It's pretty funny, but it's just got some crazy moments in it. The mom goes through dementia at one point, and it's real. Good show though.
I would have never thought that.
So X-Men didn't make anywhere in the top 15?
I talked about it a lot earlier, and it's very new. I just watched it. It's up there. I didn't do a good job condensing.
It was number 16?
I didn't even add it to
Yeah, see, I thought about adding Family Guy on there, but I stopped watching it because I feel like something's always got way too political with shit.
Yeah.
I like American Dad.
I was about to say, I never got into American Dad.
gonna lump a bunch of them in one thing.
It did blow my child's brain the other day. She's like, American Dad seems just like Family Guy. I was like, it's the same exact guy. Like, really? I was like, I love 9-year-old brains. It's like you didn't figure out the same guy that made Family Guy made American Dad.
So I am going to lump a bunch of these together. I'm gonna go next, and I actually got 14 total on this list. I'm gonna lump four or five of them together. Because they've been mentioned so many times. First one, I'm going to go with Dragon Ball Z. Like Todd said, that got us through college. It was the first and only anime that I've actually watched. Beavis and Butthead, Simpsons, Family Guy, Rocko's Modern Life. Those have all been mentioned a number of times, so I'm not going to spend a bunch of time talking about them. So we're basically going to just jump right into like honorable mention number 3. Or I guess I'll put these two together since Todd kind of compared them to each other. Snorks and Smurfs. They're very, very similar shows, very kid friendly. I got hooked on both of them as kids. I've got a couple of series of the Smurfs, but Snorks was kind of didn't make it as big as Smurfs, but yeah, very similar kid shows. Both very, very entertaining shows. I'm gonna go next honorable mention with the OG of the Jetsons. Nobody mentioned the Jetsons yet, and what really made the Jetsons for me.
The Jetsons that much.
Yeah, well, I always preferred the Jetsons over the Flintstones, and I think who really made the show for me was Mr. Spacely, the George Jetson's boss. He was the asshole character, and he made the show very funny for me and interesting for me. He was my favorite character. And then I'm just going to do one more honorable mention here, and it's been mentioned a few times, but nobody's really went into it. Is Tiny Toons. I thought Tiny Toons. I actually like Tiny Toons better than regular Looney Tunes. As a matter of fact, that was I remember coming home from St. Mary Magdalene, and usually the first thing I did was grab a snack and go sit in front of the TV and watch Tiny Toons. Favorite character is Hampton Pig. I was always a Porky guy growing up, and Hampton ended up being my favorite Tiny Toon. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump right into the top 5 here. Number 5 was Todd and Sean's number 1. I'm gonna go with South Park. I mean, like they've already alluded to it. It keeps up with current times. It takes things that are current in pop culture and it makes a story about them almost instantly and makes fun of it. Very hilarious show. So that's gonna come in at number 5. I'm gonna go with number 4 is also an OG that nobody's mentioned yet. Kind of surprising. Was Tom and Jerry. I used to love Tom and Jerry. That was another part of like I guess this one kind of came on a lot before we went to school. Turn on, it was a lot of Scooby-Doo in the morning and Tom and Jerry in the morning.
Lab was in the morning too.
I always sympathized with Tom. I thought Jerry was kind of a prick.
He's definitely a dick.
And I always felt bad for Tom. So Tom's always got a special place in my heart. But
Yes, you is, so yes, you ain't my baby.
But Tom and Jerry comes in at number 4. This one nobody mentions, and I didn't expect anybody to. But it is Cops, the animated series. Very cool show. It's kind of a futuristic cartoon set back in the 90s, maybe even late 80s. I mean, it's a pretty old cartoon. But it's kind of like a futuristic cop show. A lot of the cops have like special powers. Like one guy, his name is Long Arm, for the long arm of the law, and he actually is able to catch people by shooting something out of his wrist, almost like Spider-Man, and kind of wraps them up. But my favorite character on that show, and maybe one of my favorite cartoon characters ever, is Edmund Rock Crusher Scary, and he is the perennial prisoner. He's got the gray and black prison garb, very muscular character, bald-headed,
He dumb as shit.
and he's dumb as rocks. But one of my favorite cartoons characters ever, one of my favorite shows ever, Cops the Animated Series.
When did that come on?
Oh God, I ended up going to buy some seasons. I mean, I couldn't even. It was so old, I couldn't even remember what it came on. I mean, it was before the days of Cartoon Network. But yeah, go back and watch Cops the Animated Series. Number 2, nobody's mentioned this one either. It was a Comedy Central cartoon kind of before South Park, and it is The Critic. John Lovitz voiced Jay Sherman, and it's a cartoon character who reviewed movies, but then once he was done reviewing movies, he had it broke off into an episode. A very cool cartoon. I actually dressed up as him at one of Mike's was the one of his throwback No Shave November parties where we would dress from something from the 80s or 90s, and I actually dressed as Jay Sherman as one of those parties. Great cartoon if you've never watched it. The Critic, that comes in at number 2. Number 1's been mentioned by a bunch of people, but it is my all-time favorite cartoon ever. It was a Nicktoon, Sunday morning, Saturday morning Nicktoon, and it is Doug. Doug was my favorite Nicktoon. Todd talked about his love for Roger Klotz. I liked Roger. I liked his whole gang. Boomer, Willie, and Ned. I think that those characters, kind of again the assholes, made up the show. So again, Doug comes in at my number 1.
Do you think our anger issues have something to do with why we like dicks?
No, not at all. Not at all. All right, I will round out the list. I have only one honorable mention. It's no one mentioned it. So not really surprised, but it was a really good show for me. Inspector Gadget.
Yeah, that was a good one.
My number 5, I think Mike, you had it as maybe your number 1 or 2, I believe. The original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Those were the first action figures I ever bought based off the cartoon. I had all of them. I had the brain. I had the car, the pizza van. Master Splinter was probably one of my favorite characters of all time. The video game was amazing too. The arcade game where you played side scroll.
Yep.
Spent countless money on the video game playing it just because of the cartoon. My number 4 is Transformers. I don't really need to explain why. It's a car thing. All the sound effects that went with the transformation of them to the vehicles or the planes really kind of just something I loved and I always remember watching. Number 3 is Looney Tunes because of Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah.
Nothing was funnier to me than watching the Coyote try to catch Roadrunner. Anything involving Acme and explosions, the rockets, everything.
Just like Tom and Jerry.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. I always sympathized with Wile E. Coyote, much like I did with Tom.
Yeah. Like every time he got an anvil dropped on him, it's the funniest fucking thing to me. And I just busted out laughing. I couldn't get enough of it as a kid. I would still watch it to this day on YouTube. My number 2 is by Aaron McGruder, and it's The Boondocks. If you kind of remember back to the Chappelle Show days, when we were in college, everyone would come in the next day and quote Chappelle Show. Well, my buddy Joey and I would do this with The Boondocks, and it's a very smart show, and you wouldn't think that as much because of some of the offensive humor and language and things like that. Like they had one episode where I think they said the N-word 61 times, and they counted it out, like not through the episode, but like they made a point to bring it up. But the show tackled fairly current problems and societal things, but it was the lens that it was kind of shot from, with this family this black family moving into a white suburban neighborhood, and just all the funny things that you can play off of that was great. Regina King was excellent as the voice of Riley, Huey in it. My number 1, and I asked about it before, but it's Archer. Complete dick. Always got them in trouble, but then always somehow saved the day. But another adult humor all around. Pam is one of the best characters to me on the show. Yeah, Lana Kane is also great. I have a friend that's her name in my phone for a couple different reasons. Ladybug. Yeah, but yeah, Archer. I still will go back and rewatch old episodes to this day because I think it's just the funniest thing. It's nonstop, start to finish laughter for me. So Archer is my number 1.
There was a great crossover of Archer and Bob's Burgers. I think it's like the 4th season, the first episode.
I remember something about that. Yeah,
It's the same John Benjamin Carter. What's his name that voices Archer? John H. Benjamin.
Yeah.
He also voices Bob in Bob's Burgers.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget what happens, but Archer's sitting in the burger joint at the start of the Archer season. And it's really funny.
That's my list.
Yeah, that's some good shows.
You guys did well. There's a lot of overlap, but that's expected. I think we were going to have a lot of the same shows. I watched South Park here and there, but never continuously enough to make my list. But
We all grew up around the same time, so it all kind of makes sense.
all right, we're good. Wagons out.
Wagons out.
Wagons out.